Sophie Cunningham just dropped a bombshell that could destroy the Indiana Fever, and it all started with what happened to Caitlin Clark. The WNBA world is absolutely exploding right now. The Indiana Fever, one of the league's most talked about teams, is facing a crisis that nobody saw coming. We're talking about franchise-altering drama, injuries that have derailed an entire season, and now a threat that could rip this team apart from the inside. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about loyalty, frustration, and what happens when everything falls apart at the worst possible time. And at the center of it all, two of the most passionate players in the game. Let's get straight to it. Caitlin Clark is done for the season. The rookie sensation who brought more attention to the WNBA than almost anyone in recent memory is sitting on the sidelines with a groin injury that just won't heal. But here's where it gets complicated. This wasn't just a simple injury situation. Clark has been dealing with this problem for weeks, trying to push through, trying to help her team make a playoff push. The Fever needed her. Every single game mattered. And she kept playing through the pain until she physically couldn't anymore. The official announcement came down like a hammer. Caitlin Clark suspended for the remainder of the 2025 WNBA season. Now, when you hear the word suspended, your brain probably goes to discipline, right? Like she did something wrong. But that's not what happened here. This suspension is medical. The team doctors, the league medical staff, they all looked at her situation and said, no, you cannot keep playing. Your body needs to heal. This isn't optional. And just like that, the face of the franchise was shut down. The timing couldn't be worse. The Fever were fighting for their playoff lives. Every win, every loss, it all mattered. They had built so much momentum earlier in the season, and Clark was the engine that made everything go. Her passing, her shooting, her ability to control the pace of the game. When she was on the court, the Fever were a completely different team. Without her, they're scrambling to figure out how to even function. But losing Clark wasn't the only problem. Not even close. The Fever have been absolutely demolished by injuries this season. We're talking about a roster that's been pieced together with duct tape and prayers. Sophie Cunningham, who came over with huge expectations, she's dealing with her own injury issues. Other key rotation players have missed time. The depth chart looks like a hospital patient list. And now with Clark officially done, the team had to face a brutal reality. Their season, all that hope, all that excitement, it was slipping away. Here's what makes this even more painful for Indiana fans. This was supposed to be the year. The Fever had built something special. They had the pieces. They had the chemistry. Clark and Cunningham were supposed to lead this team deep into the playoffs. Maybe even compete for a championship. The city was buzzing. The fanbase was growing. Suddenly, the Fever mattered again. And then the injury bug hit like a freight train and destroyed everything. Sophie Cunningham watched all of this happen. She saw her teammate fighting through pain. She saw the medical staff making tough decisions. She saw the playoff hopes fading. And she was furious. Not just frustrated, not just disappointed, furious. Because, from her perspective, this didn't have to happen this way. The way the league handled the situation, the way the team managed Clark's injury, the way everything unfolded, Cunningham felt like it was all wrong, and she wasn't going to stay quiet about it. Sophie Cunningham has never been the type to bite her tongue. If you followed her career, you know she plays with fire. She's tough, she's competitive, and she's fiercely loyal to her teammates. When she joined the Indiana Fever, she brought that same intensity. She and Clark developed a real connection on and off the court. They pushed each other. They trusted each other. And when things went wrong, Cunningham felt it personally. The reports started leaking out slowly at first. Anonymous sources close to the team saying Cunningham was unhappy. Then it got more specific. She was questioning the medical decisions. She was frustrated with how the coaching staff managed minutes earlier in the season when Clark was already showing signs of wear. She felt like the organization failed to protect their most important player. And then came the big one. Multiple sources reporting that Sophie Cunningham threatened to leave the Indiana Fever. Think about what that means. We're not talking about a role player here. Cunningham is a veteran presence. She's a proven scorer. She came to Indiana specifically to help build something special with Clark. And now she's so frustrated, so angry about what happened, that she's ready to walk away. That's not just drama. That's a legitimate crisis for this organization. Let's break down why Cunningham feels this way. First, the injury management. Clark was clearly dealing with that groin issue for longer than anyone publicly admitted. She was on the injury report multiple times earlier in the season as questionable or probable, but she kept playing. And here's the question Cunningham and others are asking. Should the team have shut her down earlier? Should they have been more cautious? In hindsight, absolutely. But in the moment, with playoff implications on the line, with Clark saying she could play, the decision was made to let her go. And now the consequences are brutal. Second, the suspension itself. Even though it's medical, the word suspension carries weight. It sounds punitive. It sounds like the league is punishing Clark for being injured. And Cunningham has been vocal, at least privately, about how the league handled the optics of this situation. Why call it a suspension at all? Why not just injured reserve? Why not give Clark the respect she deserves for everything she's brought to this league? These are the questions Cunningham is asking, and they're fair questions. Third, the bigger picture of how the WNBA treats its players. Cunningham has dealt with her own injuries throughout her career. She knows what it's like to play hurt. She knows the pressure players face to be on the court, even when their bodies are breaking down. And she's seen how the league sometimes prioritizes the product on the court over the health and well-being of the athletes. That frustration has been building for years, and the Clark situation was the breaking point. Now, the Fever organization is in damage control mode. They can't afford to lose Cunningham. Losing Clark for the season is already catastrophic. If Cunningham actually follows through and demands out, the entire foundation of what they were building collapses. The front office has been in conversations with her. They're trying to explain the medical decisions. They're trying to reassure her that Clark's health is the priority. They're trying to convince her to stay and help lead this team through the adversity. But here's the problem. Trust is broken. Cunningham doesn't believe the organization handled this correctly. She doesn't trust that they'll make better decisions moving forward. And when a player loses faith in the people running the team, it's really hard to get that back. No amount of meetings or conversations can instantly rebuild that trust. The Fever are going to have to prove through their actions that they've learned from this disaster. The players around the league are watching this closely too. Social media has been buzzing. Other WNBA stars have subtly shown support for Cunningham. Some have liked her posts. Some have made comments that seem to back her up without directly mentioning the situation. There's a growing sense that this is bigger than just one team's problem. This is about how the league treats star players. This is about injury management across the board. This is about whether the WNBA is doing enough to protect the athletes who are driving the growth of the sport. And let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a second. How does she feel about all this? Reports suggest she's devastated, not just about her own injury and missing the rest of the season, but about what this has done to her team and her teammate. Clark didn't want to stop playing. She wanted to battle through and help the Fever make the playoffs. But her body gave out. And now Cunningham, someone she respects and cares about, is threatening to leave because of what happened. That's got to weigh on her. The fan reaction has been all over the place. Some Indiana fans are siding with Cunningham. They're angry at the organization for mismanaging Clark's health. They want accountability. They want changes in the medical staff or coaching staff. Other fans think Cunningham is overreacting. They say injuries happen in sports. They say the team did what they thought was best. They think threatening to leave is unprofessional and hurts the team even more. The fan base is split, and that division is just adding more tension to an already impossible situation. The media coverage has been intense. Every sports talk show, every WNBA podcast, everyone is debating this. Was the Fever's handling of Clark's injury negligent? Is Cunningham justified in her anger? What does this mean for the future of the franchise? The talking heads can't agree, which means this story is going to dominate the conversation for weeks, maybe months. And the longer it stays in the headlines, the more pressure builds on the Fever to fix this. Here's where we are right now. The Indiana Fever are staring down a nightmare scenario. Their star rookie is done for the year. Their veteran leader is threatening to leave. Their playoff hopes are basically dead. And the entire basketball world is watching to see if this franchise can survive the chaos. Sophie Cunningham has options. She's a free agent after this season, or she could demand a trade. Other teams would love to have her. She could go to a contender. She could go somewhere with better medical staff, better injury management, better organizational stability. The Fever need her to stay, but she doesn't need them. That's the power dynamic here. Cunningham holds the cards. The pressure is on the front office and the coaching staff. They have to convince her that changes are coming. They have to show her a plan for how they're going to be better. They have to give her a reason to believe in this team again. If they can't do that, she's gone. And if she's gone, the rebuild starts all over again. Caitlin Clark will be back next season, assuming her injury heals properly. But what version of the team will she be returning to? Will Cunningham still be there? Will the chemistry they built still exist? Or will she come back to a completely different roster with new faces and new uncertainty? The decisions made in the next few weeks will determine the trajectory of this franchise for years. This situation with Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever is about so much more than just one player being upset. It's a reflection of the struggles teams face when injuries destroy a season. It's about the relationship between players and organizations, and what happens when that relationship breaks down. It's about loyalty, frustration, and the impossible decisions that get made when everything goes wrong at once. The WNBA is at a crossroads with how it handles player health. The league has grown so much in recent years, partly because of stars like Caitlin Clark bringing new fans and attention. But with that growth comes responsibility. The responsibility to protect these players. The responsibility to have systems in place that prevent situations like this from spiraling out of control. The Fever's handling of Clark's injury might become a case study for what not to do. For Sophie Cunningham, this is personal. She's not just mad about basketball decisions. She's mad because she cares about her teammate. She's mad because she believes Clark deserved better. She's mad because she sees a pattern of problems that goes beyond just one injury. And whether she stays or leaves will send a message to the entire league about what players are willing to accept. The Indiana Fever have a lot of work to do. They need to repair relationships. They need to get healthy. They need to figure out how to move forward from this disaster. The fan base deserves answers. The players deserve better. And the organization needs to prove they can learn from this and build something sustainable. This story isn't over. Not by a long shot. We're going to be following every development, every report, every decision that gets made. Because what happens next with Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever could change the entire landscape of the WNBA. The stakes are that high. The consequences are that real. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.